too long anyway. He had to hurry and go get those brass plates. So, and then, anyway, he goes through and he went to the treasury of Laban, and I saw the servant of Laban. He had the keys of the treasury, and I commanded him in the voice of Laban to go into the treasury. And he supposed Nephi to be Laban. And then he spake unto me concerning the elders of the Jews and of his master Laban, because he knew that he had been out by night among them. So see, the servant so completely accepted Nephi as Laban that he carried on a normal conversation with him. Now, Keith H. Messervy has something very interesting about this also. He describes the elders of the Jews. Among ancient Israelites, the elders, the Hebrew literally means the bearded ones, that is, the old men or elders as officials. They were the heads of the families and the clans and the tribes who provided counsel, judgment, and leadership. Reynolds and Jodal suggest that the elders of the Jews were the shoterim, the officers or assistants and scribes. It's kind of interesting how, considering the fact that Laban was in charge of the genealogy, necessary for religious services and for census taking in a case of war, and also that he was the possessor of a sword, such as the only man of a high military rank would be likely to own, we may safely conclude that his position was that of a shoterim, an officer in Jerusalem, who commanded 50, incidentally. So not all such shoterim, of course, would have been clan heads. In the case of Laban, such a position combines the known description of Laban as a military leader and the possessor of the records. So we get that. And then I spake unto Laban, and he spake unto me as Zoram and Nephi was carrying on the conversation. He talks about the elders of the Jews. And then when his brothers saw him, they ran. Then when Zoram knew he wasn't Laban, he tried to run. And this is where Nephi gives his oath. Now, and I've covered that. Now this is interesting because George Lamsa also describes what a binding oath is. He says, I have lifted up my hand, is an Eastern Semitic saying which means I have sworn before God. So Easterners, when taking an oath, lift their hands toward heaven and invoke the name of God, whom they also make as a witness to their oath that they swear, as a faithful witness in heaven. Now, when treaties and agreements were made in the name of God, they were generally respected and kept even in the future generations. Older treaties and covenants were easily broken and repudiated, just as they are broken today. And then he says, look at Joshua 9:18. So anyway, and then they convinced Zoram to tarry with them, and that's pretty much the end of chapter 4 in 1 Nephi. Now what I want to do is, and there's going to be a little overlap. I mean, this is inevitable, but the treatment in a historical, archaeological, contextual manner of Laban in relation to the Lachish letters, and some new information on the Lachish letters we have from Dana M. Pike, is just so incredibly interesting. I really want to get to this and share. So there's going to be a little bit of repetition of information, but Nibley brings out the fullest context that he can, and this is actually in my opinion, one of my favorite parts about the Book of Mormon, is how Nibley analyzes the incredible connections, how the Lachish letters, as archaeological discovered texts, actually fill in all of the gaps of our modern knowledge about what was happening in ancient Jerusalem and the environs around Jerusalem, not just the city, but the areas around them, all the way out to, 50 miles. Because this was a difficult time. People were nervous, they were edgy, they were mean-spirited, they were nasty, they were wicked. Laban, being among the elders at night, and being dead drunk, and partying it up, and being a powerful man, and stealing treasure from people. I mean, this is a beautiful little micro-portrait. Well, the Lachish letters give us an even broader portrait. So what I want to do is I want to discuss the ideas behind the Lachish letters using Dana Pike's interpretation, and then I want to go through in extensive detail from Hugh Nibley's analysis of the Lachish letters. And you'll very soon see how everything about the Book of Mormon, from chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, for the first 4 chapters, everything is exactly where it should be, how it should be, the psychology of the people, whether they're the military officer Laban or the poor little young kids, Nephi, Laman, and Lemuel, and Sam, or the parents, Lehi and Sariah, who just happen to be a dreamer and a prophet, a visionary man who has to leave his land and home to disappear. All of this psychology, all of these weird, different, strange interactions, their actions and reactions are strictly authentic, based on what we now know was the serious tension in ancient Jerusalem, 600 BC. It's fascinating, utterly, incredibly delightful to see. Okay, now we get to one of the very best parts, in my opinion, what I consider to be one of the very finest expositions of this Laban story, although I still have 3 or 4 more to go. As we look at this Laban story from various perspectives in different ways, it's just incredible. It is so deep, it has such depth, it has such power, it has such broadness. It applies directly to us. Repent or be destroyed. See, that's the message of the Hopi prophecies. So, and like I say, I will do some videos on the Hopi prophecies also. Hugh Nibley, like nobody else, could expound on the Book of Mormon because he was so well read. He was so broadly read in the literature, the languages, the history. In his teachings of the Book of Mormon, the first semester, these are the transcripts. I also have these on cassette, so I've been listening to them for the last week or so. And I've heard them multitudinous times. I've taken this Book of Mormon honors class from Nibley at least 50 times through these cassettes. I don't think I'm exaggerating. I used to listen to them when I scroll sawed my artwork. Well, anyway, I probably ought to show you some of my scroll saw artwork sometime, huh? Maybe I'll do that real quick. Hang on, let me go get a piece of my scroll saw art and you can see what I used to do. But this is mostly going to be in Chapter 6 and Chapter 7 of Nibley's transcript. They were written out from the recording. Thank goodness someone thought of recording Nibley. I wish they would have recorded him from the day he had arrived at BYU, but oh well. Okay, this is my leopard that I scroll sawed. Every different color that you see is an actual piece of wood that I scroll sawed. And so you can see when I get up real close that there's some really good detail in that eye. Every one of those little pieces is a piece of wood that I cut out and then stained a different color. So there's like 15 pieces in that eye with his lid. And then in this eye, and the fun thing I did here in my leopard, in this eye, above his eyebrow, and it goes across there, and then I scroll sawed, or no, Carrie is my name there, and then underneath in the dark part, I scroll sawed shirts, and then right in the corner, I scroll sawed 98 because I did that in 1998. So that's my signature of my leopard. And this one I was going to sell, and I just never could get around to selling it, so I kept it. He's a pretty kitty. He's life-size also. And then, of course, it has the lace wood around the edge. Someone told me you ought to scroll saw leopard out of that lace wood, and instead I used it as the frame around him. And then this is my Zakane, as they say in Hebrew. This is my elder. He's my old Indian storyteller. And I scroll sawed every individual hair that I could, and then all of the wrinkles in his forehead. Every one of those wrinkles are different pieces of wood. And my wife liked this one so much that I gave it to her for her birthday. I was going to take it to California to sell it, and she said, "Nothing doing, man. You sell everything you cut." So anyway, that's my Zakane. That's my elder. I call him the storyteller, an old Indian man. And then the final piece I'll show you is my angel. You know what's so heretical about this picture? I took it from a medieval master, and I scroll sawed it. The belly button down there. Angels aren't born. So this was a heretic that painted that. Because angels aren't supposed to be human, but she's human. But she's my angel. She's my guardian angel over my house. Then I'll give you the context for her. I pull back here, and she's on the wall of my cabin. And there's the shelves. I have some Marilyn Hanson pictures over there, and a picture that my daughter. There's a picture that my daughter drew. I'm very proud of that one.